But in terms of actually fighting back on the specifics and on the aggression of the left, not even a matter of fighting back. They haven't even been on the field. Only conservative media, alternative media it's called, has been opposed. But we're not on the playing field, folks, honest to God, because, we're not seeking office, getting votes. We don't have offices there and votes, and so we're not. All we can do is try to rev up as many voters as we can to oppose the left, but we're doing it alone. And let me tell you how it manifests itself. Are you aware of the, what is the name of this bill? It's something passed in New York. It is well, I don't know the name of the bill. But this was in the New York Senate yesterday by a vote of 38 to 24. Ready for this? Abortion was voted on in the New York Senate to be added to the New York Constitution as a constitutional right. But wait, we're just getting started. The New York State Senate yesterday voted 38 to 24 to allow non-physicians to perform abortions. The New York State Senate voted yesterday 38 to 24 to allow abortion through the third trimester. But the pure evil is in the last part of the bill. The New York State Senate voted 38 to 24 yesterday to repeal protections for babies that survive abortions. The abortion business in New York has just been voted on as constitutional by the New York State Senate. Now, here in Florida, I can be minding my own business, and a cop can come to my front gate and demand to come into my backyard and check my lights if there is an allegation that one turtle egg might hatch and not go to the ocean. I can be any of us here who live on the coast for 8 months a year are threatened with all kinds of punishment. We're reminded constantly every February, because the restrictions go into place on March 1st. One turtle egg hatches and the little turtle hatchling goes the wrong direction, and we are guilty of a crime if we've had our lights on too powerfully. But killing a baby in New York after it survives an abortion is legal and was applauded in a standing ovation in the New York State Senate chamber. They were celebrating. I think the move is that you can now get a legal abortion in New York up to your due date. Now, this is the Senate. This is just the state Senate vote we're talking about. This is what happens when there's no pushback. And our side was telling us to abandon this. It was the focal point and the crux of the culture war, the entire fight over the value of life. The value of human life, which is now, on the left, becomes secondary in status to turtle eggs in South Florida or to any other number of animals in certain circumstances. And the ability to go ahead and kill a child that survives an abortion gets a standing ovation. Now, we're told years ago that the Republican Party's killing itself by resisting this and trying to oppose this. Just forget it. Let's focus on our fiscal conservatism. That's how we'll win elections. Because there's all kinds of moderates out there. They care about their back pockets more than they do abortion. We're scaring them off talking about abortion. We need to focus on the economy. And so now we've got an entire so-called conservative movement which doesn't resist anything. And in fact, its first inclination is to side with the left. rather than be embarrassed and oppose the left. In a late-term abortion, which New York has just legalized in the state Senate, babies killed, delivery is induced. They deliver the child anyway after they have terminated life. My question, why go through this whole abortion business in the first place? I mean, this law is allowed to deliver the child and then end its life, if that was the intention. And then you said, hey, if you're going to do that, deliver the child, put it up for adoption. Get out of here. No way. You don't have the right to tell us about adoption. They'll shoot down adoption as an option faster than you can bring it up. And what kind of people cheer this? But you should see it. There's a little video, a loop GIF file, that shows standing ovations throughout the New York State Senate chamber when all this was announced. And we were told, don't stand up, don't resist this. No, social conservative, social liberal, fiscal conservative. That's who we are. And yeah, that's what we've been. And even now, I'll bet you this isn't going to bother any people. But this is why the left appears to be winning with no opposition, because they really haven't had any. We've been voting for people promising to oppose, but it really hadn't manifested. That's why nobody is going to abandon Donald Trump, because he is it. The only one who pushes back. This is what it looks like. I told you after he was elected, it's not going to be pretty. Now, you can't go back and relive the past, but some of this, it's a shame. It should not have ever happened. If there were just some simple opposition fighting for the hearts and minds of the American people, engaging these people in their depravity. It didn't happen. Except in conservative media, which, of course, the left has done its best to disabuse and impugn and destroy credibility. I'm going to take a brief break here, folks, a little long, so the next segment's going to be a little short. Hang on, back with more after. I just got some of the most incredible emails. Rush, how can they do this? How can somebody know their due date is Saturday and then go kill their baby on Thursday? What doctor would do this? Okay, in New York State, it's not constitutional for a non-doctor to do an abortion. So you don't need a doctor without a conscience. But, folks, I don't know how many times, and I took so much heat, and I'm not complaining. I'm just reliving it here. I'm recounting it. It almost was as bad as when I didn't support Perot. Back in 1992, people threatening to leave the audience, saying to me, if you don't stop talking about this abortion stuff, Rush, you're going to lose half of us. But I persisted because if we're not going to stand up for life, then what other aspect of our politics or existence is worth defending? But anyway, I tried to point out to people that this is why there are things like the unviable tissue mass. It's not a baby. It's not even human. Why? Who knows when conception really happened? All these arguments were designed to tell women that they weren't really carrying human babies. You're not aborting a child. You're getting rid of an illness. That's an illness. Remember Planned Parenthood and the feminazis running around detailing all the horrible things that can happen to women because of pregnancy? Then we have the unviable tissue mass. And then basically a man's got no right, a father, no right in any of this. The woman's body, and she is the only way to do anything about it. And as to how do you abort something on Thursday when your due date is on Saturday? Well, part and parcel of the magic the left pulled off on this was to convince, and these are poor women doing this, That's another thing. It doesn't matter. You don't want to bring a poor child, into this squalid house you live in, into this horrible neighborhood. You don't want to bring a child. They did every trick in their book to further this, and it got to the point where even legally they would tell women, if you don't want it, it doesn't exist. If you don't want the child, then it's not even really there. There's no problem with aborting. And that became the determinant. If you wanted it, then it totally became a different thing. If you didn't want it, it never was a baby. It was some of these other things. And we just... Fiscal conservatism, that's our trick, that's our answer. Fiscal conservatism. Fastest 3 hours in media, as evidenced by how rapidly this one went by. But sit tight, my friends, because there's always more, and we'll get right to it before you know it. The telephone number, if you want to join us, 800-282-2882. The email address, lrushbo@eibnet.us. I really had not intended to get into this at this stage. I was going to save this for later in the program. I had a different bridge built to it. But I may as well grab audio soundbite 21. I just want you to hear the applause after I again tell you what the New York State Senate passed. This is called the Reproductive Health Act. It's a bill that expands abortion access and codifies a right to abortion in the New York Constitution. But here are the elements of this. Abortion is added to the New York Constitution. Non-physicians are allowed to commit abortions, to perform them. Non-doctors. Whatever happened to the back alley abortions with the coat hangers being objectionable? Whatever happened to that? Allow abortion through the third trimester, and Governor Cuomo up to your due date. See, if there's no doctor involved, if you don't have to have a doctor, I thought all this was about protecting the life of the mother. You know, if you go back and just remember, or have somebody remember for you, all of the arguments that have been made over the years for, quote unquote, a woman's right to choose. All of this becomes eminently understandable. And for example, the back alley abortions, the coat hangers, no, we can't have that. That's why we need to legalize abortion. Too many women are being harmed, hurt, and so forth. It was all about protecting the life of the mother, but it isn't about that anymore, folks. This is about taking the life of a child. That's all this is. It used to be. I mean, they made every effort to convince people that it was only about the life and the health of the mother, but it's gone so far beyond that. As evidenced by abortion up to your due date. And like I said, I got some emails. If your due date's Saturday, how could you? You're 9 months. How could you? You have to remember what they've done. You have to remember what the left has done from kindergarten on for the last 30 years. They've dehumanized human conception and birth. Well, they've dehumanized it. By design and on purpose. It isn't a child if you don't want it. You've heard the terms, it's an illness, it's dangerous, it's risky, it's an unviable tissue mass. You've heard all of that. But the key to it is that the fetus isn't the child. That's what all the arguments about when does conception happen. When does the conception begin? That's why all those arguments. The left has been hell-bent on convincing as many women, and men too, that it's not a baby until it's born and the mother wants it. If the mother doesn't want it and it's born, you can still now in New York, they just repealed protections for surviving babies. This is what Obama voted for as a state senator in Illinois. if the baby survived abortion, you can go ahead and for those of you who think this is easy for me to talk about because it's scoring political points, you're wrong as you can be. But what else do you call it? Baby survives abortion, and you can still terminate the baby. You can still kill it if that was the intention in Illinois. And Obama voted for that, and then tried to hide and run away from that all during his presidential campaign. They just made that legal in New York. They have repealed any protections for babies that survive abortions under the premise nobody wanted that. It's not a baby because it's not wanted. It was going to be born into poverty. It was going to be born into, well, they can't say single-parent family because they've lionized those. But they came up with all kinds of existing circumstances that would justify abortion. Poverty, violence. Who would want to bring a child into that atmosphere, they said. So anything to validate. And it's not, if you mention adoption, they're going to shout you down and they're going to pummel you. That's not an option because we're not talking about a human being. This is how they've done it. Starting in kindergarten 30, 40 years ago, gradually inculcate the idea that we're not even talking about a person here. It's potential illness. It's a potential complication. It's a potential risk. It's just an unviable tissue, man. And they get their little sonograms and they show you something the size of your little finger. Come on, that's nothing. But when you're 2 days away from your due date, for them to pull this off, they have literally had to rip God out of countless lives, and they've had to do something with conscience. They've had to find a way to erase conscience. And they've done that by basically saying the father's got no role whatsoever. It's totally up to you. It's your body. Nobody can tell you what to do. And if you don't want it, then it doesn't exist anyway. If you do want it, that's a different thing. And we're going to fight you on that. But if you don't want it, then hunky dory. When all of this was announced, it's audio soundbite number 21, this is what happened in the Senate chamber. Now, that's just 7 seconds of it. We could have made a loop because it went on and on. Standing ovation for this. So this was not passed into law as something that they thought is necessary and needed, but makes everybody very uncomfortable because many of these people over the years said, no, this is not, we just need to do this for the life of the mother, and we need to do this for women's rights, the right to choose. But, of course, we're not comfortable with it. It's just the exact opposite. They are now celebrating. They think they're celebrating women's right to choose in here, but what are they ultimately celebrating? And I have a statistic here. Let me throw out at you that I have here. It's about, yes, this is from Congresswoman Christina Hagan, Planned Parenthood, from their report, the official report 2017 to 2018. Planned Parenthood performed 332,757 abortions during the reported year. It's about the size of Cleveland. They did 2,831 adoption referrals, which is down from 3,800 the previous year. And so Christina Hagan here says, why they still call themselves Planned Parenthood, since parenthood isn't anything of what they do. And, of course, Planned Parenthood never has been about parenthood. Planned Parenthood, and if you pointed this out, they came after you. Margaret Sanger, it's eugenics. Planned Parenthood was about ways to get rid of undesirable people in society, according to the elites of the day. And those undesirables were the poor and African Americans. That's how this whole thing, this whole organization started. But you better not say that today. You better not do anything to criticize this movement today. Now, the reason this came up in the first hour, I didn't intend it to, is that something prompted me. I think it was one of my all-time favorite bumper tunes, Prisen Colonensen ein Cuso, by Adriana. Celentano, a brilliant Italian artist. I have here in my formerly nicotine-stained fingers a story from the Catholic Herald, and the headline of the piece, New York lights the World Trade Center pink to celebrate legalizing abortion up to birth. Pink, of course, the color of little girls. Now, why does this building exist? Somebody tell me why the World Trade Center, or whatever they actually, One World Trade, why does this building exist? Well, it was built in remembrance of nearly 3,000 people that were murdered in New York City on 9/11. That's why it was built, because the previous two were attacked and destroyed by anti-American jihadis who hijacked our own airplanes and our own air traffic control system when the government wasn't shut down, and flew the planes in there, including into the Pentagon. So we got into gear, and in a decade later, a new building went up to commemorate, remember, the 4,000 people who died. How's it now being used? To celebrate the ongoing abortion of tens of thousands of Americans, babies. New York City's One World Trade Center spire was lit pink to celebrate the passing of a law that legalizes abortion for any reason up to birth. The law allows non-doctors to perform abortions and repeals legislation recognizing unborn babies over 24 weeks as potential homicide victims. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, a Catholic, signed the bill before ordering the spire of One World Trade Center, as well as bridges and buildings in Albany, to be lit up pink in celebration. In the face of a federal government intent on rolling back Roe v. Wade and women's reproductive rights, I promised we would enact this legislation within the first 30 days of the new session, and we got it done. So they're celebrating. They're celebrating. Anybody can do abortions now up to the due date. And if the child survives, you can still finish the abortion. And they're celebrating this. Standing ovations. Back to the phones. Mayville, Michigan. This is Ray. Great to have you on the program. Hi.
Hello, Rush. You've, with this discussion of abortion, got my blood pressure off the Richter scale. You talk about the liberals and their immorality of building a wall, and yet we can kill babies all day long, and no big deal.
No, it isn't. That's the thing. It isn't a big deal. You're right.
Well, it's absolutely maddening, utter hypocrisy. I'll tell you, if we discovered bacteria on Mars tomorrow, the liberals would say we just discovered life on Mars. But yet a fetus is not a life. It's a precious life.
It's actually a good point, because the left did go nuts the other day when they found out the Chinese have grown seeds on the dark side of the moon. That means we can move there, because Earth, is ending. Earth is so bad, climate change is going to destroy it, but we can go to the moon now because they grew some kind of seeds. They're celebrating seed life.
Yeah, it's, there's no common sense. It's not pro-life, pro-choice. It's pro-life, pro-death.
Let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a quick question here, Ray. Seriously now, and please don't infer that I'm trying to answer for you or want a specific answer. Don't infer anything you might hear in tone of voice. This is purely a question I'm designed to genuinely get your answer here, what you think. Why do you think the left is so apparently motivated and hell-bent on doing this? Why are they celebrating what constitutes killing hundreds of thousands of babies? What in the world is making them feel celebratory about this? Do you have an answer to that?
I don't know what the agenda of man is. I can't answer that, probably in the way that you wanted answered.
No, I'm not. That's my point. I'm not looking. I think I can answer it, but I'm not looking for you to agree with me. To me, that's a fundamental question. Who in the world could want this? Who in the world could advocate for it? Who in the world could start poisoning young kids' minds because they're the ones that have to grow up and have the abortions in the first place? What do you have to do to erase the God and the conscience from young people that you get hold of starting at kindergarten? Who would want this and why? What is the possible benefit to this? Particularly,
I think it's what you touched upon earlier. They want to erase God right out of their lives, right out of society. They don't want to answer to a God. They're void of any kind of wisdom. This doesn't make sense at all. And the Bible says the fear of God is the beginning of wisdom.
Well, now you're getting close.
You take God out of the picture. Take God off his rightful throne and leave man to his ways, and we're going to end up right where we're at.
So you would say, if I may paraphrase, you would say that part of this is an open-faced defiance of God.
I believe it, Rush, and I'll tell you, another one of my pet peeves is our leaders. They'll get up, they'll give their speeches, and it always ends with God bless America. It doesn't work that way. If you're not going to give God his rightful place, America is an exceptional country. We were found like no other country. One nation under God.
They don't care about any of that.
I know it.
They have no appreciation for that. They have no understanding of it, no appreciation. They got no ties to it in their minds. You're talking about stuff that codified slavery and racism and bigotry and homophobia, anti-transgenderism, anti-binary kids, anti-cisgender contrarianism. They got no ties to the founding. There's nothing romantic about it. There's nothing historically wonderful about it. To them, it was a period of pure evil that they're finally getting their hands on and rolling back. But that's another answer. I have my answer to your question. I just want to hear what other people think, because this is, I can ask the question in a number of ways. Why are they so celebratory over now the freedom to kill? Why is the freedom to kill such an important political objective? Why do they want to do this? What is the benefit they derive from this? And I'm sure everybody's got a legitimate answer to it. I have mine. I'm just curious what others, because I think that's how you have to look at this. I mean, what is it really? What is it that's happening here? And they're doing standing ovations after they passed the law. So why? What in the world has been achieved here in their minds? What is the reason for the happiness and the celebration? Because you and I can't relate to it, but clearly it's making them deliriously happy. There is an answer. We'll be back after this.
We're always...
Thanks for the call. Here's Tony in Greensboro, North Carolina. You're next. Great to have you.
Thank you, Rush. Mega dittos.
Thank you. Great to have you.
Thank you. I just wanted to call because I am hot after this abortion bill. I was just talking to some friends, and I'm saying I'm so disappointed in the people who would vote for this, because you tell me where our priorities have gone when you will fight to save a blasted tree but have no convictions about killing a child. It's evil, it's wrong, and they have become so power hungry that they're willing to murder for it? where's your conscience gone? You're not listening to God. You're not even listening to your own good conscience.
Well, there isn't any conscience. That's the thing about there not being a God.
Absolutely. Well, they think they are God.
Well, maybe I actually think these are serious questions, and I know you're asking it seriously. But when you pause for just a second and realize what has happened here, they just did a standing ovation on the passage of legislation that allows unprofessionals to perform abortions and to go ahead and kill babies that were intended to be aborted but survive it. And standing ovation. This is, to me, a very, very, very serious thing. Why? What in the world? You can say they're power hungry. You can say that they've got misplaced priorities, like they care more about a turtle egg where I live than they do about a human life. But it goes deeper than that. It has to. Now, let me see if I can dig deeper on this whole abortion business, and maybe I'm going too deep on it. Maybe I'm making too big a deal out. We're talking murder here, folks. Now that's what makes this different from the way they've always approached this. There has been a significant fundamental change in the way they are describing what they are supporting here. Because it's always been killing. They've known it. We know it. Everybody knows it. They have sought to massage the language so that it wasn't seen as that. And the primary way they did that was to cloak it in a woman's right to choose. It was a freedom issue or a civil rights issue. And nobody has the right to tell a woman what she can do with her body, even though we do it all the time. We have laws against prostitution. We have laws against drug muling. We have laws against any number of things that involve the body, men and women both. But the left couched it as a civil rights issue, and they denied that there was even any killing going on because there wasn't anything to kill. It was an unviable tissue mass. It was pregnancy is a risky medical condition. It can develop into a disease. Then they told us that there are deep psychological problems that can result from pregnancy itself, not abortion, but pregnancy. I mean, they built a whole lot of so-called justifications for abortion, never acknowledging that the death of a human being was happening. That was the point. It was not the death of a human being. They argued about when conception began. So was it a human being? And people would say, well, it has to begin. Conception begins. Life begins at conception because where else can it begin? No, you can't say that. And then they got into presented scientific papers from learned people at the Guttmacher Institute about when life begins. And it was never at conception. Then they got into well, there's no soul there. What are you conservatives talking about? There's no soul until the baby's born. They went through every imaginable distortion and contortion to convince everybody that they wanted to support the cause here, that we were not talking about the loss of life. If they came out and advocated for the wanton killing of children, they would have never had the popular support for it that they did. But if they couch it as so many women are impregnated against their will by rapists, muggers, men are brutes, can't trust men with their own children. Anybody who would want to bring a child into the world fathered by that brute? Then they show you a pajama boy walking in the garden. Seriously, folks, they did everything they could to justify the procedure by dehumanizing it. Do not doubt me on this. And why were they even so into this? It was a political issue. What was the benefit of this? Well, it was a hell of a fundraising issue, but it also tied inexorably to militant feminism, which meant that it tied to uber liberalism. So it was designed to raise money. It was designed to create hatred against people who love God and believe in God. It was designed to create a divided society and culture with people who love and believe in God on one side and everybody else on the other. And then they tried to recruit as many people away from God to their side as they could. All the while, never acknowledging. That's why they couldn't support adoption. You couldn't support adoption because there's no baby. And then, of course, rape and incest comes along, and that's even another reason why. But it's not the baby's fault how it was conceived, but it didn't matter. Rape and incest, another reason why we can't force women to. But now, folks, all that's gone now, and it's changed. And, you know, the big changes, they are giving standing ovations in the New York State Senate chamber to the killing of children. Now they are acknowledging that that's what's happening, and they're applauding it. And they're codifying it and making it constitutional in New York. They applauded. There was a standing O for the provision that if an attempted abortion fails, you can go ahead and finish the job after birth. Stood up, standing O. You realize this is a striking change in approach. For the longest time, there wasn't a baby involved. There wasn't a human being. It was just a woman's right to choose. It was just civil rights, human rights. It was an illness. It was an unviable tissue mass. It was a potential psychological problem. To get away with it, to promote it, to make sure that there were as many abortions as possible, they had to take the human element out of it, and they did. Now, they're making no effort whatsoever to hide what's happening. They're openly celebrating what's happening. That's my question. Why? What in the world, folks? The last time something like this happened was in World War II. Not supposed to bring that up, by the way, in relation. I found that out when I tried that at the 92nd Street Y with Jeff Greenfield. Man, did they get mad at me in the audience that night. I said, I don't know. You people didn't. Because, see, there wasn't killing going on. Back when I did in 1992, there wasn't killing. Talk about it that way. Oh, no, you reminded people what's going on. You couldn't do that. Now they're right out in the open. So abortion now is an approved method of killing, whereas it used to just be about a woman's right to choose. Civil rights issue. Somebody want to tell me that they're going in the right direction? Somebody want to try to tell me that they are progressives and that they are furthering the enlightenment of human existence? What kind of people are these? Now, I asked earlier, why are they doing this? I'm going to give you my answer to it. And it's not a standalone. It's not just one thing. But I'm going to tell you what a large part of this is. And many of you are going to poo-poo it. Many of you are going to say, Rush, get serious. It's not that simple and insignificant. But I'm going to tell you that a significant part of that standing ovation at the New York Senate chamber and a significant part of all the other celebrations is about one thing, and that is they are beating us and rubbing our nose in it. And that is what they hate us to the point that anything that gives them the feeling of victory, the feeling of having trounced us. That's worth the standing ovation. Us being religion, God, the Catholic Church, Christianity at large, conservatives, the conservative movement. That's as much of what they're celebrating as anything. They think we've been standing in their way on this and so many things, and they've had 2 years of what they think is Trump standing in their way, and to them, this deal in the New York State Senate yesterday was a massive rebound, a massive overcoming of tremendous odds, and they finally won one, and they get to rub our nose in it. And that, as much as anything else, is what motivates these people. I'm not saying that that takes away from how evil. Don't misunderstand. They care about the issue too. But their hatred for us and victory over us is as much of a motivator as their issues themselves. Let's see. Yeah, not enough time to be fair with anybody else on the phone. Let me check something right quick. See how